Good evening. I feel very privileged to introduce to you Sneška Quaedvlieg-Mihailović. You're welcome.
Dear colleagues and friends, it is really a great privilege for me to have a conversation, this conversation with you. And it is the first time that I'm attending this important conference, international conference, Unity and Plurality, organized by the International Forum Bosnia. Thank you so much, founding president, Professor Rusmir Mahmud-Cehajić. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you, my dear colleague and friend, Professor Amra Hadjimuhamedović, for inviting me to be one of the evening public lecturers during this conference. And it is my special joy to see so many young faces and to greet the participants of the International Summer School. So it is 18th edition of the conference and 18th edition of the Summer School. I know that you have been working hard, started in Sarajevo, now in Mostar. You are going tomorrow, I saw at 7 o'clock in the morning. So it is really a very intense program to Stolac, and there you have a fabulous program. And tonight I will use this opportunity to convey some messages. That are of global importance, but also of local importance. Today, during the conference, we have had very, very meaningful, inspiring exchanges on the role of our heritage, of our identity, multiple identities, contested identities. How do we heal the societies? The role of heritage was healing the societies, especially societies that have gone through very tragic and traumatic experience like it was the case of Bosnia and Herzegovina. But this evening we shall focus on I would say an equally important collective task. And this is the task of finding proper ways to healing our planet and our living environment. And this is the task that we can only embrace and fulfill together. We shall explore the role of cultural heritage as a strategic resource for the green and social transformation of human lives and the living environment in Europe and beyond. I know that there are also participants here among the young participants who are coming from outside of Europe. And we shall do this on the basis of the most recent work of my organization. My organization is called Europa Nostra, the European voice of civil society committed to cultural heritage. This year we celebrate our 60th anniversary, and we have been increasingly carrying out, together with a growing number of partners, an action to ensure that cultural heritage is at the heart of Europe's and our society's transformation. Next, we'll speak about the transformation, as I said. We'll speak about the role of cultural heritage in green transformation, also the social transformation, and at the end I will tell you more about the most recent challenge that Europa Nostra got, and it is to set up a European heritage hub and a European project that is based on the notion of the role of heritage for triple transformation of our society, green, social, and digital. Now first, you have heard this word transformation. The word transformation gets used a lot these days, and justifiably so. We stand warned by scientists, civil society, indigenous peoples, and more by our own children and grandchildren about the increasingly catastrophic consequences of biodiversity loss and climate change. Already last year, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres ringed the alarm bell against the status quo, saying that business as usual had put the world on a fast track to disaster and that we risk rendering planet Earth uninhabitable. Climate scientists say that the 2020s will be critical, and it is now or never to avoid the worst impacts of climate change, including major cities becoming underwater, unprecedented heat waves, and we see it already, it is happening, terrifying storms, and the extinction of 1 million species of plants and animals. In the face of these crises, the only possible response ought to be a dramatic one, radical one, transformation now, since we are running out of time. And in saying this, I do not make a political statement, I do not express a personal opinion, rather I'm merely referring to science. And the Paris Agreement sets out a goal of holding global warming to 1.5 centigrades, a political and scientific benchmark aimed at avoiding climatic tipping points that can result in irreversible losses and damages. The world's leading climate science body, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, has said that limiting global warming to 1.5 centigrade would require rapid and far-reaching transitions in domains like energy, land use, urban planning, and infrastructure. And this will require ambitious and well-integrated adaptation, mitigation, development pathways that deviate fundamentally from high-carbon, business-as-usual futures. And such a transition is said to be unprecedented in human history, at least as to its scope. And that's why that term transformation, which is often invoked, is underscoring the need for urgent and far-reaching changes in underlying practices, institutions, and social relationships. Transformative change is defined by the IPCC as a system-wide change that requires more than technological change, through consideration of social and economic factors that with technology can bring about rapid change in the fundamental attributes of natural and human systems at scale. It has been 30 years since the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change was signed at the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro in 1992. 30 years. Establishing an international environmental treaty to combat dangerous human interference with the climate system. 6 years, and 6 years after, the countries of the world signed the Paris Agreement. And yet, today world leaders concede that the Paris Agreement goal of 1.5 centigrade is on life support. UN Secretary General Guterres, that I already quoted, called this spiraling climate catastrophe a dawning indictment of failed climate leadership. And the young generation is very often raising the voice against that failed climate leadership. So the question is, how did we get here? How is it possible that climate leadership failed or is failing? After 3 decades of climate planning, policy and action, why haven't we bent the global emissions, greenhouse gas emissions curve? In an influential article released just before the 2021 UN Climate Conference, over 20 scientists, including a former vice chair of the IPCC, laid the blame for the failure to bend the emissions curve, in part on what they call a pervasive failure in industrial, modern society to imagine desirable ways of living that are neither wedded to the carbon economy nor dependent on narratives of progress reliant on perpetual economic growth. The scarcity of social imaginaries capable of conceiving plausible forms of living without dependence on fossil fuels, they write, is not just a climate change problem. Rather, it implicates collective global capacity to imagine and realize forms of living not dependent upon exploitation of people and natural resources. And this approach plays out in climate change and environmental policies that tend to emphasize a narrow suite of technological and market-based solutions and fall short at capturing demand-side measures and systemic, uncertain, or contested factors that are less easy to model, quantify. And we were speaking this morning and this afternoon about all these elements that are less easy measurable. These forgotten factors include the social, political, and ethical issues that are at the heart of people-centered climate action, including attention to the historical and socio-economic systems that have helped socio-economic systems, and when I say that I'm thinking of colonialism and globalism, that have helped cause climate change and the ongoing consequences of these systems on lives and livelihood. Even where people are centered in climate policy, for example, campaigns that encourage people to use less energy, individuals are often depicted as purely autonomous actors, unfettered in enacting their personal preferences, albeit with institutional incentives and constraints operating as background conditions. These approaches miss the point, and the point is that people are embedded in culture, and that the cultural system of societies and related spiritual, religious, and ethical dimensions influence the values of individuals in ways that are relevant to understanding human behavior. And as a result, they underestimate the complex structures in which people operate and the conditions needed for prolific collective climate action. The exclusion of people-centered approaches in climate planning and modeling is naturally matched by exclusion in person. Many climate planning processes are not inclusive, reenacting existing stigma and marginalization and failing to engage indigenous peoples, women, youth, older peoples, and persons with disabilities. And all these sets of exclusions, it is increasingly argued, perpetuate an incrementalist approach to climate action that helps explain why climate planning is falling far short of the rapid and transformative change needed to hold global warming to 1.5 centigrades and avoid climatic tipping points that can result in irreversible losses and damages, as we have heard already. There it is, a missing force in climate action culture. So after 30 years of climatic action, what hasn't been tried? Who is still missing from the climate action table? And we, in Europa Nostra, together with our colleagues also of the network called Climate Heritage Network, we think that the answer is, quite frankly, very clear. We miss culture, we miss cultural heritage, tangible and intangible. Culture remains that great missing force in transformative action, an omission the world cannot afford anymore. And to bolster a system of climate planning and policy that is struggling to beat 1.5 alive and to capture hearts and minds for achieving rapid and far-reaching system transition on a nearly unprecedented scale, we must unleash the power of culture as a pillar of transformation. Now is the time for bold action. We all know that we are running out of time, and that's why I want to talk to you now very concretely about how we realize these goals, focusing on two critical elements of transformation. First on the green transformation, and then on the social, while of course we know that the two are very closely intertwined. We shall start by the green transformation. So climate change, along with biodiversity loss, is the defining challenge of our time. We started with explaining that. And green transformation describes the process of tackling these challenges. Ultimately, green transformation aims to reduce greenhouse gas emissions towards zero, to achieve sustainable development, and to build resilience and enhance human capacities to adapt to climate impacts. You see here the mention of the European Green Deal. I hope that many of you have heard. This is the fundamental plan that the European Union has developed in order to make Europe the first. The ambition is to be the first, but perhaps other continents will be quicker, climate neutral by 2050, and to boost the economy through green technology, create sustainable industry and transport, and cut pollution. You would not be surprised that when it was adopted in 2019, the word culture was not mentioned anywhere through this major policy document with all its various chapters, and that we all felt we need to get our act together. And what did we do? We decided to join forces, because you can always work in partnerships and join forces with our colleagues from ICUPE and also with Climate Heritage Network in order to produce a document, and it was done during the pandemic, during the lockdown. Fortunately, we had digital technology to help us to stay in touch together, and in order to produce what we call a European Green Paper. You see here the cover page of the European Green Paper, putting Europe's shared heritage at the heart of the European Green Deal. Nothing less, nothing more, but at the very heart. It's not something peripheral, and we definitely wanted to demonstrate to the European Union leaders and institutions and all the various players that there is something fundamentally, a fundamental resource that is missing. And we have been analyzing chapter by chapter the Green Deal in order to demonstrate that heritage, yes, it is endangered because of climate change, but it's also part of the solution. So this green paper was published in March 2021. It was sort of considered as a breakthrough. You would not be surprised to hear that with all the recommendations, we still have a long way to go, and we need to lobby in a much more forceful way. It's still the far from the full recognition, but that's why we are here, and I'm here with you here in Mostar, and when we will be, and I will tell you more afterwards about the European Heritage Hub that we will be working, that will be one of the key aims of the advocacy work of the European Heritage Hub. So we show that the Green Deal and cultural heritage are closely interconnected, and that all these key areas, and what are these key areas? From the circular economy, the renovation way, or what they call from farm to fork, or agricultural reform of our agricultural system also have strong cultural implication, and that we must further stress the relevance of culture-based climate action. As I mentioned, and you all know, that cultural heritage is also like the whole, our entire environment and our entire humanity is threatened, and our cultural heritage, tangible and intangible, is severely threatened by global warming. Many heritage sites across the globe are threatened by rising sea levels or by extreme weather conditions. Of course, everybody thinking about Venice, but there are many, many more places in Europe and in the world that are, it seems that already half of the heritage is already now endangered by climate change. And also with native populations being displaced because of the climate emergency, valuable traditional know-how linked to their originary natural environment is at risk. And our natural heritage ecosystems and landscapes are also suffering from the impact of rising temperatures. But as I said, we also want to, we're not just the ones who said, please save us. We say we are part of the global mobilization, and we are part of the solution. We, meaning people dealing, also heritage professionals involved in it, but also local communities that are connected with cultural heritage. And then from reusing heritage buildings to using traditional agricultural know-how to support sustainable food system, cultural heritage can support the transition towards a healthier, greener, and fairer future. And this green paper also provides recommendations addressed to policymakers. For example, again, in relation to the digital heritage field, strengthening also digital infrastructure and capacity building in digital skills, both for professionals and audiences, or reinforcing the role of documentary heritage, including in digital form, can also be very important vectors for climate education. All in all, the key message of the Green Paper is that for the huge potential of cultural heritage to be unleashed, all climate, environmental and sustainability frameworks, the European Green Deal at European level, but also the UN Sustainable Development Goals, you are all familiar with them at the global level, must incorporate social and cultural aspects. And we are now also engaged together with many actors in a campaign for the recognition also of the cultural goal as an 18th goal of the SDGs. We have 17, as you all know, when they were somehow didn't manage to get also. People say, yeah, but it's everywhere. Yes, it's true, it's everywhere because cultural heritage has this transversal value, but it also deserves to have a goal and so on. And there is a growing mobilization, again, I'm saying not just in Europe and at a global level towards that. And also with the Climate Heritage Network that was born in 2019 and that we got engaged now. And we are, with the Climate Heritage Network, also very active towards the COP. I think you all know the annual conferences on climate that are taking place. This year, last year, it took place in Egypt, in Sharm el-Sheikh. Unfortunately, again, we did not manage to get the breakthrough for the recognition of culture and cultural heritage as important resource for climate action. But this year, it's taking place in Dubai. There's a lot of negative, of course, reactions because it is the fossil fuel producing country that is hosting the COP. But the Emirates are we have managed, so civil society organizations managed to establish quite a good dialogue with the Emirates government. You know, Amra, when we met last time, it was in Dubai, and we are working hard to try to have that breakthrough and recognition of culture now at the COP in December, and that's why during our conference, 60th anniversary conference that is taking place in Venice at the end of September, we are having a very special session dedicated to the launch of a global action for the recognition of culture at COP 2028 and of course beyond. We count very much also that we will get also the partners from all over Europe, including the Western Balkans, more aware of this challenge, our joint challenge, and also involved in this mobilization and advocacy that we are very much engaged in. Social transformation. We have to also develop a more sustainable, green Europe and the world, but we also have to have a more inclusive society. Again, we have been talking a lot about inclusive society today during the conference. If we are talking about unity in plurality, this is also essential in this transformation of our society and environment. We need that unity in plurality in order to achieve this objective. Europe's society is increasingly diverse, and due to intra and extra-European mobility, globalization, globalization, and diverse migrations, brain drain, creative migrations, depopulation of rural areas, etc., etc. Contribution of cultural heritage to building more inclusive and cohesive societies, and in turn enhancing overall well-being and sense of belonging is essential. And amidst this social transformation, cultural heritage has the power to bring people together. I know that in this region where we are, cultural heritage also was very much misused, and used and misused to tear societies apart and to build walls and to inflict deep wounds to societies. But the philosophy of the organization that I have been working for the last more than 30 years is that if we approach cultural heritage as something which reflects our multiple identities, it's something that we share in, again, unity and plurality, then indeed, with this approach to cultural heritage, it can play a fundamental role in bringing people together, and that's why, and for this power to be unleashed, it is also essential to ensure a democratic access to cultural heritage and to leave no one behind. And also it is essential, as we have been discussing today, that we have the interpretation of our heritage is done in the proper way. So this is really, we believe, a fundamental dimension of cultural heritage, and we need it in order, in this social transformation that we are going through. Pathways compatible with 1.5 centigrades warming entail processes of deliberation and implementation that address societal values, local priorities, and inevitable trade-offs. But it requires definitely an inclusive governance. Without that, we cannot achieve it. To be accepted and adopted widely, and thus to be successful, climate mitigation and adaptation measures need to benefit the well-being of all and leave no one behind. Furthermore, local climate action and social solidarities are closely interrelated. And transformation entails building solidarity and alliances. Without that, again, it's impossible to do it in a fragmented way, everyone separate. Solidarity principles need a unified vision between all local actors, whereby each one's responsibilities are structured via multi-governance mechanism. That's why we are talking about this participatory governance of cultural heritage. It's something that is very much recognized, but it's very difficult to implement into the practice. But still, we need to work on that and to advocate. And this solidarity also must be a two-way process, with all participants learning from each other's experience. Some cultural models emphasize the importance of heritage and education as factors for peace. Again, we spoke about that today. Interpersonal and intercultural dialogue, and by promoting mutual understanding and conflict prevention. The integration of cultural practice and heritage methodologies across governance processes can illuminate diverse stakeholders and their values and support their interactive engagement. There is also an urgent need to increase the diversity of people that are at the table where these transformative policies are being designed. It's not just leaders somewhere there. So we need to promote a greater involvement and empowerment of minorities, persons with disabilities, older persons, and traditional knowledge holders. Such voices should be given the opportunity and the support, including funding, to lead the formulation of sustainable development and climate action plans. The role of cultural heritage also can be strengthened as a vector for the resilience of local communities. We are talking a lot about resilience, but not enough recognition is done that cultural heritage is part of that endeavor, including newcomers. And it is also a basis to restart even after climate and natural disasters. They have already started happening and they will continue to happen. But again, if we have the local community that is kept together, that it has some kind of the solidarity and confidence in each other, it's the only way to overcome such challenges. And again, we are in the city, and tomorrow you will be in the city that had the strength, thanks to its people and the local community, to overcome difficult times. this is going to be happening a lot also because of climate change. It's a different type of challenge, but it is something that we need. We need local communities to be part of the solution. Cultural and heritage support of multiplicity of social networks also, helping construct the identities of people and communities in ways that can strengthen social fabric and place attachment and reduce precarity. Let me also mention that when we speak about all this action, we speak a lot about equity and justice as well. Because if we don't have equity and justice, then we can't have resilient communities. And that is essential for climate resilience, sustainable development. And this attention to equity requires recognizing that we have uneven development opportunities at all levels. The uneven distribution of risk, including on future generation, and the uneven capacity of different groups to respond to change. And a variety of cultural heritage elements lie at the intersection of justice, equality, and transformation. And these include, for example, how widely capabilities are distributed within a society. What are the gender roles? What is the societal tolerance or rejection of unequal harms? And social roles in resources use, sharing, and management. So as you can see, we have a lot of challenge which is ahead of us. And all this also raises the issue of just transition. So we cannot just have a transformation, we have a just transition and a just transformation. And that requires for special policies and measures also that ease job losses and correct for relatively higher prices of energy also, but also address cultural disruption, all of which suggest rooting just transition initiatives in the culture, heritage, creative industry, craft, and knowledge of local communities. I promised you that at the end I will tell you, just in a few words, what are we doing as an organization that represent the voice of civil society towards the decision makers, and also sort of encourage heritage stakeholders to avoid fragmentation and to act more jointly and join their forces and forces. European Heritage Hub. The European Union launched a pilot project. There was a call for projects, and together with a strong, here we can see all the consortium that we are leading, 19 partners, Europeana Foundation working in the digital field, Eurocities, the powerful network of cities, ICLEI, local governments for sustainability, the world of academics, the KU Leuven, important university from Belgium, and with the support of cities like Krakow, Athens, and Lisbon. So that focus on the role of cities is also extremely important. We were selected to run for the next 2 years, and hopefully as a pilot will continue afterwards. And what is the concept of this whole European Heritage Hub? It is the concept of this triple transformation we have been talking about. The concept of everything that we are doing in Europe, and the connection of various policies that contribute to this green, social, and digital transformation. And it is so the triple transformation is framing, highlights 3 strands of transformative change. And I have not spoken too much about the green, the digital aspect, because we agreed that we're going to focus more on the green and social aspects of it. This triple transformation is meant to highlight the multifaceted nature of transformation and to emphasize the need for interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary knowledge, which is created by researchers and practitioners, local and indigenous communities, and local, regional, national authorities and international bodies working together to address persistent problems. And with this project, we will establish and develop an autonomous advocacy and knowledge platform, bringing together a large array of cultural heritage stakeholders. And we shall invest special efforts to duly involve and engage heritage stakeholders also from the European countries that are not yet members of the European Union. And it means the Western Balkans, also the European countries of the Caucasus, Ukraine and Moldova. And this is why I am especially pleased to be today with you here in Mostar and to discuss, I hope, after is a follow-up of this exchanging ways to develop a more structured collaboration in the future, in the framework and with the resources of the European Heritage Hub. And as my friend Ambra knows, that I think that this initiative of the International Summer School that you're organizing could be definitely an initiative that the European Heritage Hub should be working with and supporting, and that we can develop ways of collaborating and getting the Western Balkans and the rest of Europe and beyond involved in that process. And I just want to mention, I mentioned the European Green Deal, but you might have heard also of an initiative called New European Bauhaus. And this is an initiative, recent initiative also of this Commission and President von der Leyen, who realized that the Green Deal is lacking the cultural dimension. And she said, not only we have to have we have to have a sustainable and inclusive Europe, she even used the word more beautiful Europe. I have been attending European conferences and European Union meetings for decades. It was the first time that I have heard a European leader using the word beauty as a value. And I think we have been talking this afternoon. You have mentioned, Professor, also the word of beauty, something which is not measurable. And that we come to the point that they are realized that we can do that transformation by making our lives and our living environment more beautiful. And then after she launched that, suddenly the civil servants again said, but how can we measure? We can't measure beauty. Let's just get rid of the word beauty. And then we have been very much involved from the very beginning, saying also the heritage world should be part of it. I said that this was the most radical, most revolutionary in this whole initiative, to also speak of Europe in terms of, I'm calling that 3 E's, sort of ethical values, aesthetical values, and ecological values. And this is something that really has to be at the heart of this value-based Europe that we are aspiring to. And voila, I think I have come, I think I've spoken a lot. Let me just say that with this project, Europa Nostra, with all our partners, all our members, with the European Heritage Hub, we hope that we can do better together. And you said stronger together, but I much prefer to say we are better together. And that's why initiatives like this one, conferences where we are promoting the value of unity and plurality for the sake of the local communities, but for the sake of the preservation and saving of our planet as well, is so essential. And so let's continue to build these bridges, to join our voices and our forces. It's not going to be easy, it's going to be tough. But if we are doing together, and if we are tackling all this power, as we said, transformative power of our culture, in all its diversity, in all its plurality, then it's going to be a little bit easier. So thank you so much for your.
Thank you, Sneška. You are very inspiring, enthusiastic person, and your witness engagement for ideas you speak, and your lecture was so vivid that I'm sure all of us enjoyed in this lecture. Allow me, as a small introduction, include Bosnia in this idea, small calculation to narrate to you. Sarajevian writer and philosopher Veličković wrote one calculation, and he said 1/5 of the Earth is continent, other is oceans. On 1/5 of this continent, human life is possible, other deserts and ice. Only on 1/5 of this fifth, the life is a little bit more opportune. And on 1/5 of this fifth is more opportune, and on 1/5 it is 3,000 something more. I'm not mathematicians. The life is extremely opportune, and this is possible. Most opportune part of the world for life, not only natural beauty but also heritage. You spoke about. We're looking at our heritage. We are really part of Europe. So I wanted a little bit to include Bosnia and Herzegovina. So now, if we have first of all something for explanation or for discussion, something to add, please.
I have a question. Is there any kind of guidance?
Louder, please.
Is there like any kind of guidance or goals to be followed?
We cannot hear you.
Yeah. Stand up, please. And tell me where you come from, because it's for me interesting to know where people are.
Yeah, my name is Siraj and I'm
From Bahrain.
Yeah. I'm asking, like, is there any kind of guidance or codes to be followed or considered when it comes to social or green like aspect to conserve the cultural heritage? For example, similar to the LEED certificate when it comes to a building. So is there like something like or specific points to consider for that?
First of all, I would like to share with you, because there is, I mean, I spoke a lot, but there is so much more to say. And I think it would be good, Amra, that this document that we have, which is a 60-page document, the green paper, that you share with the participants on the summer school. And then also, I mean, I would be more than happy that the sort of, as I mentioned, we are going to have this conference in Venice at the end of September, and we are preparing sort of a document there, and we are going to go into much more. And here I was cutting. Yeah, I can also share the longer, the full text of because there were some more examples that we have been using. So I really hope that that could be useful for you. And there are also a lot of references, because it's something people working in the heritage field, in particular in the last, I would say, 5 years, in particular in the last 5 years, there has been an acceleration of research going on, in particular, and European Union has been funding a lot of research on the role of cultural heritage in the green and cultural transformation. And so this is also this European Heritage Hub project that we just started now to implement. Our task will be to unleash that knowledge, because there is also a lot of research is doing, but again, it's fragmented research. And I think this is something that our task would be to sort of, all these examples, all these, as you said, toolkits and guidelines that we can share. And we can share it also, and we can also work on their implementation with cities. Because I said that the very strong role, and on the level of the local governments, there is it's also more direct and a quicker transformation. There are a number of cities that are committed to this transformation more than the others, and they are like a sort of front runners, and they have a very important role, because they can also demonstrate concretely how these policies are functioning, and if they are successful, what is the benefit for the well-being, for also the inclusive societies. So there is a lot of resources, and that we will be with this project and with our team, we will be collecting that knowledge. And also, it's of course very important that this summer school, Amra, is also involving. I understand that you are organizing it also with the support of the Arab regional
Regional Center for World Heritage is our
in Bahrain.
partner
In
in
Bahrain.
Bahrain, so behind
So I
and
think,
with the ICRAM role.
and so all this is something that we should be advocating together towards the European Union, that on this topic, because it's a global issue, and that we have to work also, Europe has to work hand in hand with other parts of the world. And now with the COP taking place in Dubai, we really have a very, very important opportunity to sort of to appear en force in French, you say, we said, how is it, in a powerful way together, and then get hopefully also more funding, not just in Europe, but also in your region, also for further doing research and for hopefully implementing the best practices and the recommendations.
So my name is Orhan, and I'm one of the coordinators here at the International Summer School of Youth and Heritage. I found it interesting while you were talking about social transformation. My question would be, how much have you considered the fact that the impact that young people have on projects like this? Because unfortunately, in places like Sarajevo, where I come from, I know that young people, not all of them, but a large amount of young people don't even think or consider about cultural heritage. So first you need to incentivize them to care about cultural heritage, so then they could use that cultural heritage to care about climate change, to use the cultural heritage to impact the climate change. How do we incentivize them? Because I don't think telling them, oh, the world will be a nicer place one day is enough to get their interest.
Perhaps the route is through climate action. Indeed, I think the young people, because the young people, I mean, I will tell you, for example, my children started respecting, I think, my work more when I started talking about the relationship between culture and cultural heritage and climate action and all the environmental imperatives. Understanding that this is not something which is, because again, discussion we were saying, it's not something belonging to the past. And we were having this afternoon conversation, is heritage only about the past? Or is it something we care for that because we need it as a resource for our future? And perhaps it is that shift in also in our way of communicating about heritage, that it's not just putting everything and taking care of the museums, but saying that this is something that is fundamental. It is so fundamental if we really want to successfly tackle all these challenges. And the young generation, you tell me, I don't know, in Sarajevo, are they interested in green issues, in climate action, or is that also not an issue that they are interested in?
The people I know don't tend to talk about it too much. That's the problem that I see.
Yeah. But that I can imagine that, you know, in this region, and that's why I'm very glad that Amra invited me to talk about this topic, because when we come to the Balkans, more of the time we talk about identities and the contested identities. We talk about all the wounds of the war, of the political dimension of it, and missing totally this aspect, which perhaps is also going to be to help us to overcome also these other issues. This obviously we are not with these contested identities. It remains contested, but to realize that all this traditional knowledge, also talking about traditional knowledge and craftsmanship and know-how and traditional architecture, traditional materials, etc. That this is something that it can teach us how to shape our cities, because simply it will be unlivable. And it is something, if you say they don't care, but they must care. Already now, the heat is going in this way, how are we going to live in that? And so to understand that continuing to build and to develop the cities in the ways, and in this region in particular, there is, I know about Belgrade where I come from, but I suppose in Bosnia we have too much unsustainable buildings and building things that are totally opposite to what are the new European Bauhaus principles or the Davos principles of high quality Baukultur, etc., etc. So this is something that, again, how it is by advocacy, by campaigning, and you don't need to, at the beginning it's enough to have a small group of people. This is already a huge campaigning potential.
This is climate action.
This is exactly, and so and it is having more of people and young people who are engaged in cultural heritage, understanding that it's part of the green agenda. We are not just part of some kind of past agenda, we are part of the green agenda. We are circular economy, because why we want to preserve also the traditional building, because simply they are also in terms of energy efficiency, they are better, simply better. So, but you're right that there is a lot of campaigning is necessary. That's why I'm here, and I hope that though many more people we have to get them together. I was always sort of one of my obsession as a Secretary General of Europa Nostra to say, if we sometimes fail to convince leaders of the importance of heritage, whether it is for green transformation, social transformation, other, it is also a little bit our mistakes. Perhaps we didn't get together enough. There is too much fragmentation. And sort of I always say we must fight fragmentation, and that's why again, unity, plurality, and by coming together doesn't mean that it is harmonization. It's not harmonization. It is just taking the skills, taking the knowledge, taking the experiences, learning from the best, trying not to learn from the worst, but learn from the best. And that's why also what I didn't mention, today we spoke about one of our programs, which is 7 Most Endangered, but we also have our program, the European Heritage Awards. And nowadays, among the winners of these awards, you have so many examples. So again, if you're asking for concrete examples, just go to our website and look at the European Heritage Awards. There are extraordinary projects, innovative projects, and a lot of young people involved in many places in getting awards either for conservation, adaptive reuse, education, etc., etc. So all this is the purpose why we are coming together, because we learn from each other. And this is the power of good example.
Okay, now you've caused me to have a follow-up question.
Yes, please.
What would be the sustainability of your plan? Let's say hypothetically, the world agrees to the project. They agree to implement all of the plans, and the plans are successful. But then what happens is, in a few generations, because these plans were so successful, we start to see positive change. And then the next generations, they forgot about how hellish the heat in Mostar was, at which point they start not to care again.
The goal will never be achieved once and for all. It is a constant battle. And we have here learned it in this region, we have learned it, we thought there will be peace, we will all be living happily ever after. Alas, it is the constant battle. It is constant battle for peace, it is constant battle for democracy, it is constant battle for human rights. Never, you will always have the new generation in it. You will have new challenges, and because of new challenges and new threats, you will have fears. we were talking about the fears. You will always have fears, so it will never be easy. It will never be easy, and it's not the reason not to work now. But hypothetically, that there will always be people who sometimes who would be objecting, who will try to stop, and that is the destiny of humankind. But I think also this whole initiative, this whole conference, this whole forum, your summer school, our work, it is contributing to that, the forces of good. How can we sort of allow that the forces of good are becoming stronger than the forces of evil? It's a never-ending task for humanity.
Work now so you can live to work later.
It has to be now, and as quick and as strong as possible. Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Karima. I'm from Morocco, and I'm a PhD student. And I'm dealing exactly with the same topic of today's presentation. So I'm trying to relate to bring the gap and try to bring together the heritage and also the environmental issues. So here we're talking about Europe. I'm trying to give some example of from North Africa. For example, in Morocco, we had many small initiatives, and it's kind of an example to Orhan's question. We had like a small village, and at first we had resilience of citizens, and they are not aware, and the Moroccan community would not live in like houses in stone and using local and natural resources, and they would prefer concrete and all the contemporary materials and red bricks because they seem to be like more contemporary. But once you prove it, and once you try to propose a project and they live happily inside with good temperature and they feel the comfort, interior comfort, and so like they got convinced easily to that it is the natural way. From today's presentation, I loved the sentence that the heritage is in danger, but it's part of the solution. I do believe that we have many genius solutions and know-how from our local traditions. Each country has rich knowledge and needed to be transmitted to future generation, and this is what will make the world better. So either in Europe or in Africa or all over the world, we have like the same issues and maybe the same solutions, but the mobilization of all of us can make a better future.
Thank you so much. I feel very much encouraged by hearing what you said, and indeed, you said in Morocco, but in the whole of Africa, there is at least an increased understanding that what until now they thought was sort of being behind the development, that now sort of that's why you probably heard me using also several times that indigenous people, in fact, they can teach us a lot about the relationship with nature, and this is the way how you live in better harmony with nature. And that's why the struggle also to get these messages also at the table of the big international conferences and negotiations is to get these voices more present and more heard, and also there Europe has also a lot to learn from other continents. So it is there we are really also in a sort of world. Multipolar world, but also the recognition of the tradition and cultural traditions of all from the entire planet, and not in fact pushing forward to a development model that simply is just leading all of us to the disaster. And I'm very pleased to hear that we are working on that, and hopefully many more young people will go in that direction. And it also gives back the sense of pride that these traditions, in fact, and finally, that the quality of life and the well-being be better than just tearing all that down and building glass buildings that it will be unlivable. But it requires a lot of education. So all what we are saying is not going to happen if there is no massive funds for climate education. But then we must make sure that in the climate education, the cultural dimension is much more present than it was the case until now. Because that is what we are all the time saying. For too long, focus was on we need to develop new technologies, which is true. Of course we need, there is a lot of new technologies that we need to have an energy transition, etc. But we also need a change of our mindset, a change of a way of life. But a change of way of life can bring more beautiful life. It's not something, if we understand it also, and that's why we say you need the word of artist, you need the word of heritage to sort of, to convey all these messages. And the world of art is also very much involved in climate action, but it's not sufficiently. They're using also the leaders are still using sort of art is more like something which is peripheral, but also through art it can catch the imagination of people, not to fear, because that is it. We have to replace the fear by a sort of a hopeful. An idea that yes, we can do this thing, but not, and that we even have the knowledge that our ancestors, in fact, are conveying to us.
And to agree perfectly, because the process wasn't easy. For example, for the small village we worked on, we had like many participatory approach, and we bring together communities to make them propose and help us find the best way to live in their village, and also to make tourists come and visit. So like it was a plan on diverse levels, social, economic and ecological, and the process wasn't easy to make them believe in our project. But once it is implemented, like with all the infrastructure, they are happy with it. Even some political issues and so struggles on many levels. But then the result is here. It becomes like a pilot village for other small villages around Morocco. So even with small initiatives, it gives hope, and it gives value to the heritage with a green approach.
I would like to hear, to learn more of that. If you can send me more information on that example, because that's exactly what we are doing, collecting good examples, and that we can use as an illustration for the advocacy that we have to do together.
Okay. First of all, thank you very much for your presentation. I'm Ala from Syria, and I'm now doing my Master World Heritage Studies in Germany. I would like to know, from your perspective, what is the best approach to get a balance between cultural heritage preservation and the urban development, especially considering the situation of the increasing population, for example.
Considering?
The increasing population.
Not at all an easy challenge. Yet another challenge, and you're thinking particularly in cities.
Yes.
I mean, the issue of cities and big cities and growing population, it is indeed striking the right balance in preserving the historical character of the cities. Ensuring also the necessary green spaces in cities, and not just filling them and growing them. It is a huge challenge and huge task again. European level and a global level. And that's why we are very glad to have in that consortium that we have now made, the European Heritage Hub, to have the organization of cities. And in particularly, of course, the bigger cities are facing bigger challenges, because it's also, there is a problem of mobility, and then how do you ensure that, again, the mobility with all the energy transformation that is necessary. So it is putting the finger on one of the many big problems. But again, in Europe, a lot is done now. For example, on mobility, bicycle. We are in Germany. You know how much is encouraging the mobility, which is a different one. But again, when you have an increasing population, how can you absorb? And also, it's more difficult to absorb all that in historical centers, where you cannot just have enlarge the lanes for mobilities. But on the other hand, you have, on one side you have cities that are increasing population. On the other side, you have cities who are losing population, or in particularly smaller cities. And there is also a big challenge to see how it can be, the incentives will be made. And in today's world, that living, especially with the digital technologies, it allows you to be a citizen of the world while enjoying the quality of life of living in smaller towns. And you will be in one of the beautiful cities tomorrow. As of tomorrow, you will be in Stolets. And there are, in Europe, there is a tendency also in the younger generation to say, instead of being sort of living a very difficult life in crowded cities, or being in they will, also the changes in the way of working, that you can work remotely, etc., etc. So again, that means that we are in the middle of huge transformations in all sorts of ways. And our work there is a transformation of the way of working. Digital technologies are part of the solution. They can also bring other issues that we have to deal with, but certainly are allowing us then not to flee all to the big cities in order to be closer to work, closer to jobs. And because also in Europe, there is in some countries there is really desert smaller villages or smaller towns, beautiful. Living in these places would be a paradise if people. But of course, you have to. It's the issue of work. How do you then get the economic resources to work? But it means also a different economic model, and it is the different types of activities that will allow jobs. It's also different ways of dealing with agriculture. This is also another way that it can be closer to the sort of cities. And food, quality of production. It's also heritage. It's also part of it. So there is a lot of initiatives are going on in order to say that you can make it better, the quality of life, by all sorts of initiatives. But definitely in big cities, and certainly in your country, must be a very difficult task.
Great.
Well, thank you first of all very much for your presentation. And as
Can
we
you
are in
just speak up a little bit?
My name is Belma. I'm a student of conservation and restoration in Sarajevo. And thank you very much for your presentation. And as we are in Mostar, I wanted to ask about the Partisan Memorial Center. And on your opinion, can the restoration of the cemetery somehow fit into this green plan of your organization?
Thank you so much for this question. Yes, I know that you have visited the cemetery yesterday morning. I have visited it last night together with my husband, who is here with us, Senada Demirovic, who was with you. She also guided us. I don't know whether you have heard that the cemetery is on the list of 7 most endangered sites of Europa Nostra, and so we very much hope that we can help all the people that are mobilized to revitalize. And exactly when we were visiting the site, because the connection between, it's an architectural masterpiece. It's a sort of land art. It is a memorial site, but it is also an extraordinary dialogue between the man-made and nature. And even now, when we see it now with this nature that has now occupied, in a sense, or it's like life coming back to that place. And I said to Senada, I mean, and if you look there, you have biodiversity. It's just an example of recreation of natural spaces that Europe is now promoting so much. And I said, the next renovation that is will be done should not be done by just cleaning all nature out. So finding the right balance of also even that now wild sort of the biodiversity that came out, in a sense, life that is and it was the whole symbolism was that it is the city of the dead, looking towards the city of life, and some kind of life winning, while keeping the memory of the ones who have lost their lives, but life is, there is some kind of rebirth and renaissance. And I think that whatever project, again, I'm not an architect, but whatever is going to be done, I think that green element would be a very important dimension of the project, because it's miraculous that you have so much in the city. It's just in the city that piece of greenery that is very meditative, very spiritual, very it's connects memory with your attitudes towards the nature. So I really very much hope that that something beautiful and hopefully sort of something which gives hope, which gives hope to this city, and connecting. We need to connect people, but we need to connect people with the memory and with nature as well. So I'm very glad that you have pointed out that.
I'm very glad that it's on the 7 most endangered. Well, I'm not happy that it's endangered.
I know, indeed. I always say it's wonderful, but I wish it was not. Now, but this is a sort of. I think this is the use of an organization like Europa Nostra to say. And again, this morning we were speaking about that, and what I said, especially after the visit, said Europe must save. Must engage, and we, for the sake of Europe, for the sake of Mostar, for the sake of Bosnia, for the sake of Europe itself, such a place has to be, has to have a renaissance, and the forces of some kind of barbarian acts, vandalism, that must, we can't allow that by barbaric acts, for whatever reasons, it is, but destroying, taking a hammer and destroying a memorial stone of somebody who lost their life, it is something which simply is not part of that value-based and culture-driven Europe that we stand for and we want to belong. And that's why also I even went very far by saying that also the memory of all this anti-fascist struggle at the time. So because if that movement at that time did not win, the whole European project would not be what it is today. So that's why we shall do everything possible, because we have a very good relationship with the European Union institutions, together with the local organizations, civil society organizations, hopefully together with the local government and local authorities, that we should get Europe to support. Comparing to the masses of other projects that they are funding, this is really a very small investment in something that that is investing in Europe, in a value-based Europe.
And I just would like to add something that is important, Sneška, even for Europa Nostra to know. It's a national monument, and in accordance to Bosnian law, it's the federal government that is responsible to provide all financial, technical, scientific, legal, administrative and other means to implement decision of Commission to preserve national monuments. So during the period when I was working in the Commission, we designated it as a national monument. So the local authorities are guardians, but the federal government is responsible, and they should be addressed.
Exactly.
So you should come to Sarajevo to meet the federal prime minister.
You're absolutely right. It's something which is a national monument. It is the country. It is the highest level. You're absolutely right. It's not.
But this is federation, you know. It is the highest. It is national monument. But for the implementation of these national decisions, it is Federation and Republika Srpska and District Brčko that are responsible. They have to provide.
Yeah. But there again, the European Union, which has such a strong positioning and role in Bosnia, like in the rest of the Western Balkans, we feel that they ought also to lift up the cultural heritage issues among the priorities in this region. For far too long, it was not considered sufficiently important, but this is Europe's heritage. I mean, it is of course heritage of the local communities, but this is such an important part of Europe's heritage. And again, the fact that for these European Heritage Hub projects that we successfully lobbied, that they said, yeah, you have to have an additional funding in order to make sure that the Western Balkans are involved. The understanding that if you want really the integration of this region in the European Union, then investing in cultural heritage projects would be necessary. But we still have to do a lot of lobbying together. We need a young generation, we need civil society organization, we need universities, initiatives like this. But you know, our task is a little bit to be the voice, as I said, the European voice. But you know, you are the one who created this wonderful choir, Ponte Anima. I love it. I love it. The bridge between the souls, and that's why we feel that we are the bridge builders. And when I say the voice, it's rather a choir. It's not really the voice. It is rather sort of a large choir of very different voices that comes together. But you know. Yes,
hi, my name is Yara. I'm a Palestinian Syrian. Thank you for your lecture.
I didn't hear. Where do you come from?
I'm Palestinian Syrian.
Palestinian.
Yeah. I want to ask you about Venice situation. I want to ask you about Venice situation.
Venice.
Yeah.
Venice. Yes.
Yeah, especially to protect this city. What is the eco solution to protect it? Especially that Venice have a unique construction with their building. So what is the eco solution?
The green solution. The green solution. Yes, the green solution. No, I mean, I have this morning, just before I started the lecture, I was getting WhatsApps that there is yet another attempt to get Venice on the list of World Heritage in danger, because you know the World Heritage Committee will be meeting in September in Riyadh, in Saudi Arabia, and now people think that we all have to have it on the list of endangered on the list. I mean, in the meantime, we have been campaigning for that. In the meantime, I'm not sure that that's really the solution. To put, we all know that it's in danger. We also, in 2016, we have also placed. Every year we have 7 on our list of seven most endangered, and then we said, and then there is +7. There is the most endangered site in Europe is Venice and its lagoon. But Venice and its lagoon. So that is extremely important, because it is that interaction between the historical city and the lagoon, which is a very special ecosystem, water ecosystem, that makes that place so unique in the world. But it makes it also potentially, and even now, even the mayor, who has not always come up with the sort of the most acclaimed solutions, he is now calling Venice la città la più antica del mondo, del futuro. That they're saying Venice is the oldest city of the future. And that their understanding, and indeed, when you are in the historical city, it is a city where you are walking. You're not using. Walking is good first of the city. It's good for your health also. Always in my track record of my when I'm in Venice, I am walking the most of any other places. So it's very healthy. Now soon we will have, of course, the electrical motors for the boats that are in the lagoon. So it will also the sea transport and the boat transport will be less polluting, because that's very important. So there is a technology development that will allow to use boats as a sort of transport system that will also make it a very ecological way of mobility. Now, the problem is that the problem with Venice is, even if you do all that, plus if you manage to have, because what is the tourism? The tourism in Venice is definitely not the sustainable tourism model, but it is. I mean, it's easy to criticize. It's not so easy to find a solution, because everyone wants to. It is attracting so much tourists. But what recently somebody told me that in fact the big masses is coming are the day commute, the people who are coming for just one day from the region itself. It's not so much all the ones who are traveling from the rest of the world. So there has to be some kind of management of the tourist flows that is limiting the number of tourists in high season. But there again, you have they're all in the around the Piazza San Marco. You go 10 minutes, you just walk in other places, and you have Venice for yourself. So it is very strange, all those sort of tourism models that. Now, the question of the rise of the sea, that is something which is, so even if now the cruisers have been, now that they're not passing near the Bacino di San Marco, though they're still entering into the lagoon. There again, the super mega cruisers is a tourism model, a business model that is totally, So how do we cope with that? It is the wrong business model from all point of view, from the point of view of sustainability. So how to to get also those cruisers, the real solution is that the cruisers should not be entering in the lagoon, because that balancing this ecosystem of the lagoon, not cruisers, no big ship in general should not be entering in the lagoon. But then the rise of the sea level, that is then for a city like Venice, it's going to, even for the moment, as you know, there is this MOSE is the mechanism that is working for the moment. But for how long? At some point, it is not going to be, with all the investment that it was made, because of the rise of the sea level. At some point, it is not going to help anymore. That means that the only way that we all collectively have to fight for the goal of the Paris Agreement, we have to fight to keep the temperature lower in order to and not allow. So it is the way to save heritage as well. So being an activist for climate, it is the way to keep a lot of our heritage in a safer than it would be. So again, the reason more that we need to get much more and radically engaged in supporting the climate action that is much more ambitious than it is now the case.
Any more questions?
Yeah, I think it is time to finish.
Can I ask for a? I would like to thank Sneška, and beside the fact that this is a public lecture, this is also your theoretical workshop, dear students. As you have been so much participating in this and engaged in this, I would like to give you a homework, a task now, with permission of Sneška, who will add tasks to this. So, if you have not already received the organization of the working groups, you will receive them by tomorrow morning. So each group will have a task to discuss the following issues. Why climate change is so appealing issue today? What makes the climate change such an appealing issue? Is the climate change something new for the planet today? What are the threats? Because we say heritage is in danger. How heritage is in danger by climate change? And how heritage can be a solution. So if you can just discuss between yourself in the group, make some kind of brainstorming, referring to the history of planet. And prepare, we will tell you when the presentations will be in one of those days when we have some time. Sneška, do you have any additional question for that? Something that they can do this brainstorm.
What can each of you do to contribute to their goal?
Great. So that's the question. What can I do, like a person? What can I do to the climate action? What is my personal climate action? Okay. Thank you so much.
And I hope you will somehow send me the feedback.
Of course, and of course, make it either PowerPoint presentation. So each group, it's a competition. We will buy you smokvara for the whole group. Smokvara is a special sweet installers for those who have the best, the most inventive result of this work. So now, Fra Ivo, sorry for thinking this.
So I think the 18th International Conference on Unity and Plurality is finished. I think it was very successful. Thank you, organizers, Rusmir, and all of you. And I was also enjoying work with this group, young people. We will be next day. So, Rusmir, would you like to tell something?
Only thank you, Ivo. Thank you, Sneška. Thank you to all of you. See you tomorrow morning.